Hello beautiful people, I'm RaishPhoenix, and in today's video I will be showing you guys how I completed this piece. If you'd like to see, just keep watching. So for this drawing we're starting off with a marker sketch base. I like to use a red, I believe it's called col-erase or col-erase-able color pencil in red, just to start off with a marker drawing, so as I go on I can just focus on the colors that I'm placing down and it doesn't leave any harsh lines. I'm using my Ohuhu 120 marker set, and the first thing I'm going to start off by doing is putting in the undertone of the reference photo that I am looking at. So I definitely learned a lot during the process of this piece because, oddly enough, markers used to be my least favorite medium just because I just have like traumatic memories of using like Crayola markers, using the yellow on top of another color, and then just seeing how the yellow just changed and got muddy at the end of the tip of the marker, and I was just like, girl, I don't know if I can do this. But I've actually been watching a lot of artists. One in particular is I'm a Wonder. She's also here on YouTube and her work is amazing. I absolutely love how she experiments with like watercolor and markers and gouache and so many different mediums. So because of her I decided to actually try this brand and also just get better at using markers, or just reintroduce the medium to myself. And for a while, I didn't really know how I wanted this to work for me. What was difficult at first was just figuring out kind of like just the medium itself, like how markers will look on paper in general, and then figuring out how I can translate this medium into the way I want my style to look. With time and just practice and just using different like reference photos and just looking at different pieces, I realized that what I like to do first, as I said just a while ago, is that I go in with the undertone of the person that I'm drawing. So I just focus on the areas where I see a cool undertone or a warm one, or one that has more warmth to it. And then after that, you guys will see me go in with a flesh tone on top of everything. So pretty much I'm just layering it, but I'm having those colors sit underneath the overall base color just to bring out different hues underneath it. So the top layer is more uniform, but then you still get to see the subtle shifts from underneath because of the warm or cool tones that I placed there. Another thing I do is I just use the tip of the marker. This helps me with just controlling where it goes and also just controlling the overall way that the marker goes down on the page. I felt like one of the things that worked to my advantage while just working on this piece was that I was putting down the marker strokes in the direction of how the skin naturally sits on the face. I don't really know how else to really describe that, but you guys can see like how on the sides of the nose, how it curves to kind of meet or, bring in the curvature of the nose and like falling onto like the underneath the eye area. And I feel like because I did that, it helps convey more of the three-dimensional mass of the face, as opposed to just keeping the entire piece in just one brushstroke direction, like all going down or all going to the right or whatever the case may be. I feel like just adding that little thing and just being conscious of really trying to, I guess in a way, like carve out the form is really what worked to my advantage, and I felt like made this piece stand out more for me and kind of just what I wanted to do when it comes to this medium for my style. So a quick side note, it did help to swatch the colors off camera. As you guys can see, I have the 120 swatch sheet underneath my sketchbook. Lord, I just forgot the name. Underneath my sketchbook. So what I did was I already looked at the colors on there and I tried to match it as best as possible to the photo that I was referencing, and just trying to keep it similar, but you know, allow my piece to kind of develop into how it was going to look with the colors that I do have. But it helped a lot to just see how colors layer. So before I even applied these colors to the page, the first thing I did was I chose the markers that I needed. I put them off to the side. I have a smaller piece of sketchbook that I could swatch everything on. I wrote the names of the colors above, and I also just looked at how they layer so that when I went in and worked on the actual piece, there weren't any surprises like, oh, I thought this would layer into a different color. You know, I figured that all out from before, and I feel like that really helped with this process. Another thing that helped me was to just use the colors that I already had used on the face for the neck and the chest area. I don't know how many other artists struggle with this when they're working from a reference photo, but sometimes I get too caught up, and I speak on this a lot, sometimes I get too caught up in making my drawing look like the reference photo as opposed to letting my art style naturally develop this piece into what it is and just listening to that. This was one of those moments where I really had to be mindful and conscious of that because, like I said, I'm still getting used to this medium. So sometimes when I'm working with a different medium, or I'm just focusing on how I want the program to work for me, or the medium, whether I'm working digitally or traditionally, sometimes it kind of makes me forget the things that I have to be mindful of with just like how my artistic journey has been going. And one of those things, as I said, is just allowing the piece to become what it is. And I feel like if I wasn't mindful of that, I probably would have kept feeling like I had to choose different colors and just adding different things to add more, or what I would have thought would be adding more dimension to the area. But sometimes it's just understanding values and understanding that although it may feel like the chest and the neck area is different from the face, it could just be a subtle difference of adding more of a deeper shade that was already in the face but not as prominently there in the face as it is in the neck and the chest area. So just keeping it very subtle, but also being mindful of how value plays a part in what I'm seeing and how I can interpret that in my drawing. After I had put down what I had believed at the point to be all of the medium of the marker down, I decided to grab my color pencils and start shaping out some areas in the piece, just adding more of a like blush kind of flushed look to the cheeks, outlining the eyes, and just adding more dimension and deeper values to the areas that I felt needed it. I do want to try getting different color pencils because the ones that I have, it's the Prismacolor Verithin, I believe, but as you guys can see, it's kind of like pulling out a texture within the paper. It could also be the paper. Sometimes it's not the medium, sometimes it's paper. I don't know. But either way, I do want to try using some other color pencils because I wanted it to have more of a smoother look. Like usually when I see other artists use markers with color pencils, the color pencil doesn't pull as much texture from the paper. So as I said, it could be the paper, it could be the color pencils, I don't know. But I do want to try different color pencils to see if I can get a more smoother look that kind of looks a little bit more like an airbrush type of feel as opposed to pulling the texture. After I had laid down the color pencil, I realized that there were certain areas where I just wanted to, or preferred to go in with the markers just to add more of a prominent look because the color pencil felt too subtle in that area that I have left open just underneath the eye area. So I decided to go in with the markers, again just focusing on using like the tip of the marker to really control how it's applied to the page, and just, you know, focus on adding that color and getting the correct value that I wanted for that area. Just going back in, adding more depth to the areas of the hair that I feel are really going to help bring dimension to the overall piece. I'm just doing my best to think about how everything will work together, as opposed to focusing on just the face or just the neck and the chest or just the hair, because I do want to make sure that when I, you know, distance myself from the piece and I look at it, it doesn't look imbalanced when it comes to the amount of depth that I've added to a particular area. You know, sometimes you can be intentional about that, you know, like if you want to add more detail to the face than the other areas, which is what I did in a sense, because you can see that I left the marker strokes a lot more looser on the neck and the chest area, but at the same time I did want to make sure that, like I said, the overall piece looks cohesive and it doesn't feel like it's unintentional. You know, I think that, I don't know, like I think that you can definitely do things where you're intentional about leaving an area more looser defined to call more attention to a particular area. But, you know, when you just focus in on how the overall thing looks or the overall piece looks together, that's when you can really start pushing the focus and just the overall composition of it. And here is a completed piece. Thank you so much for watching. Bless up, and until next time, sending out much peace, love, and enlightenment. Bye guys.